Hey everyone, this is Brian with OBEDIA, and my friends at Lexicon Pro have asked me to take a look at their PCM native reverb bundle, which is available from lexiconpro.com. This is a great bundle of reverb effects, which are available for both Mac and PC in the RTAS, VST, and audio unit plugin formats. So you should be able to make use of these in just about any audio workstation that you might happen to be working in on your computer. I'm going to start off today by talking about the Lexicon Chamber Reverb plugin, which is part of this bundle. I'm going to play some music for you guys and then do some comparisons alongside to show you the sound of the plugin and how we can sweeten up our sound very quickly and easily by making use of these awesome plugins. So let's go ahead and dive in and start talking about the Chamber Reverb from Lexicon. Now, the interface of these plugins is all very much the same, and the great thing about that is that means that you are not going to have to be remembering where certain parameters are and various things like that. You're really just going to be able to dive in and start making use of the plugins no matter which one it is that you might have instantiated in your session. Now, again, I'm making use of the Chamber Reverb, and I know that because the algorithm type is listed right up here in the left-hand side. If I click on that, I can get a little bit of information about what version of the plugin I happen to be running and various things like that. So if you ever happen to lose track of which of the plugins you've instantiated, you'll know immediately by taking a look on the left-hand side there. And of course, here in the center, right in the display, you're also going to see the name and algorithm of the plugin that you happen to currently be using. So let's talk a little bit about the interface right here. Now, in the top part of the Chamber Reverb plugin interface, you're going to notice that we have first off, the category section. If we click on that, we have three separate categories that we have access to, in this case, small, medium, and large chambers. These all, of course, are going to affect the final output sound of the plugin. And the other thing that we can make use of to change that sound is presets. When we click on our preset menu here, we're going to get a preset pull-down menu, which is going to let us choose from a number of different presets designed by the folks at Lexicon, most of which should meet your needs when it comes to how you might be mixing and what you might be mixing. In the center of the console, we have first off on the left-hand side our input and output meters, very useful, of course, for being able to keep track of our level in and our level out. In the center, we have our real-time display, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that just a little bit later, but if we click on the real-time display, we're going to be able to choose from three different displays. That's the multiband, the frequency, and the impulse response displays. So these are all different displays that allow us to dive in and do a little bit of mixing with our eyes. Of course, ultimately, our ears should be our final deciding factor, but it's nice to be able to make use of a little bit of display mixing every once in a while when we are actually diving in and mixing and making use of a plugin such as this one. On the right-hand side of the plugin, we have our EQ section. Very, very easy to use. We can choose from a number of different low-pass and high-pass frequency settings for this equalizer, and then we can make some settings to the EQ by simply grabbing on to the dials underneath the equalizer, which will allow us to dial in the sound a little more directly and make it match our source audio just a little bit better. Now, if we take a look at the bottom section of the plugin, you're going to notice that I have this rather large fader section. And this gives us immediate access to a number of different parameters inside of the plugin, all of which will again affect the final sound of the plugin and how it's going to sound in our mix. And all of these parameters are controllable by the faders, which are right underneath their label name here on the top. Now, this section also will allow us to do a number of other cool tweaks to our sound. We'll talk a little bit about that soon here, because I know that you guys want to hear how this plugin sounds with some source audio. So let's go ahead and dive in and play a little bit of music. I have some acoustic guitar right here, and I'm going to start off by bypassing my plugin so that you can hear this guitar dry. So let me play this and show you what it sounds like. So, sounds really nice. It's a little bit dry, but of course, that's the way that we usually record things. We record dry, and then we add effects afterwards. This is the beauty of being able to make use of a software reverb plugin. We don't need to bring hardware into our studio and therefore color our signal before we actually record it. We can do all of our signal coloring and effects in the post-production process rather than doing it as we are recording the audio. So that's one of the great things that you get when you access a plugin such as the Lexicon Chamber Reverb. Now, the chamber reverb sound is very, very easy to understand, but it can be very hard to emulate. The original idea is that inside of some form of a space, we would have a couple of speakers and a couple of microphones. And the sound would be played out and then captured by those microphones, and we would create a chamber reverb sound from that effect. Now, the thing is that a lot of times with a sound like that, we would get a lot of reverberation. We would hear the sound of our signal bouncing off of the walls. And one of the things that Lexicon has worked very hard to do with this chamber reverb plugin is minimize us hearing all of that slap back that we usually get with a chamber reverb sound. So what that means is that we're going to be able to get a very dense, very clean reverb sound for whatever it is that we might happen to be feeding into this chamber reverb without having to hear the sound of the sound bouncing off of the walls and various things like that. So minimizing that reverberation of that type, that slapback, is really going to give us a very clean and very straightforward type of reverb. So let's dive in and show you guys what this sounds like, and I'm also going to show you what the real-time display can do at the same time. So I'm going to click my real-time display. I'm going to instantiate the multi-band real-time display. And let's start off by making use of a small chamber. I'm going to select a small chamber from my category pull-down, and let's go ahead and try out, how about the small chamber 1 dark. Now, I've dialed my mix in a little bit low here, and that's because if I have my mix up all the way, honestly, it can be a little too heavy on the reverb unless that's an effect that I happen to be looking for. I want to really make use of one of these faders, make use of the mix fader to dial in the mix between my original dry signal and my affected signal just right. So I've dialed my mix back just a little bit, and I'm going to play this for you guys and just show you what it sounds like with the effect on. So we'll unbypass our plugin and start playing. So you can hear I'm not getting a whole lot of slap back. I'm just getting a very nice, clean, straightforward reverb sound. And that's really, really very nice because originally with a lot of chamber reverb, again, we would end up hearing a lot of that slapback. And that's something that's not always very desired. Now, if you decide that you want to start dialing your sound in a little bit further, you can, of course, make use of the faders here on the bottom of the plugin interface. You saw me making some changes to my pre-delay and my reverb time. Now again, very soon here, I'm going to show you guys some of the other ways that we can tweak all of these faders in order to make them match our mixing style just a little better. But in the meantime, let me play you a little bit more music using some of these presets. So I'm going to load up the medium chambers category, and let's try out a medium chamber 2 in the light setting and see what this sounds like. So again, in this case, we can hear the space getting a little bit bigger. Again, we're using a medium chamber, so we can hear the space growing a little bit. And we can also see how our multi-band real-time display is reacting to the signal that we are feeding into the chamber reverb plugin. So again, making use of all these presets can be very, very useful because this will allow us to really dial in the sound exactly as we would like it to be with our mix. So finally, let's try out one of the large chambers, and let's start off by making use of a large wide chamber in the dark setting and see how this affects our guitar. Here we go. You can hear how big that sound is. So again, we are getting really that very large chamber sound added to our guitar. So again, let's play this a little bit and we'll just bypass it and then unbypass it so that you can hear the difference. So very, very noticeable change to be heard there with that guitar being fed through the chamber reverb. So really, really very, very nice sound going on here with the chamber reverb. Really lets me dial in and emulate that space exactly as I would like to emulate it based on a chamber reverb algorithm. So that's some sound examples right there for you of how it is that we can use the chamber reverb on top of some source audio. Let me tell you guys about one more very cool feature on the chamber reverb plugin, and that's going to come in down here in the fader section of the plugin. So one of the coolest features of the Lexicon Chamber plugin and all of the Lexicon plugins is the ability to edit the soft row. And the soft row is this list of labels which we have right here, which all correspond to different parameters in the plugin, which we have access to from the many faders that are just below the labels. Now, one of the things that I am able to do to really dial in my mixing style while making use of the Lexicon plugins is click on the edit button. Now, what this is going to do is this is going to open up the soft row. And the soft row is going to allow me to actually change the different parameters which are available to me as I'm mixing using the plugin. So again, you're going to notice right here at the top label, I have the label pre-delay, and right beneath it, I have the text for pre-delay. If I click on that, I'm going to get a pop-out menu. And this is going to allow me to choose from all of the different parameters which I can control in the plugin by utilizing that one fader, but this is going to allow me to dial in exactly what it is I want to control. So if instead of controlling the pre-delay for the mix and input section of the plugin, I can take a look under reverb control right here and click on size. Now the size is going to become the parameter which I can control inside of my plugin by grabbing and making use of this fader. Now, what I can also do is make use of the compare button. When I click on the compare button, you're going to notice that the plugin says compare on in the center display right here. And this is going to allow me to go back and forth between the previous settings which I've made and my current settings. This way I can really compare and listen and see if I like that new sound more or a little bit less. Now, if I would like to store one of my plugins, let's say that I've created the exact sound that I'm looking for, I can click on the store button right here, and this is going to allow me to store my user presets inside of my Lexicon plugin so that this way I have the ability to recall those settings at any given time inside of my plugin. Now let's take a look at the different parameters which are available to us in the bottom half of the plugin right here. I'm going to first click on the input and mix option, and this is going to give me, it's a straightforward group of parameters. All of these allow me to obviously change the input and mix of the plugin with respect to the audio which I am feeding into it. So this is where I have access to my mix slider, of course. Here's my pre-delay, my diffusion, my shape, and my spread. So this all will allow me to get quick and easy access to the input and mix sections of the plugin. If I click on the reverb section of the plugin, I have access to all of the reverb controls for the Chamber Reverb plugin. This is going to allow me to really dial in my sound very directly. And this has a number of different controls ranging anywhere from size to being able to control the bass crossover and the reverb time and the tail width. In other words, how long of a tail I'm going to have on my reverb. So each of these different controls is going to allow me to really dial in my sound. You're also going to notice that in some cases, some of these parameters will have options which I can change. In this case, reverb time has the ability to have infinite on or infinite off. And over here under the high cut, I can click and I can select exactly what type of damping I would like to make use of on the high cut part of this plugin parameter. So this allows me to really, again, dial in the exact sound that I would like to have inside of my Chamber Reverb plugin. If I click on the reflections section, this is going to allow me to make changes to the reflections of the sound inside of the plugin. This will allow me to control anything from the reflection master time. I can also control the left and right delay times and the gain of those delays. And again, you'll notice that I have options underneath these to be able to change between, in this case, for the gain normal and inverted settings. And here in the delay return time, I have the ability to change from absolute and tempo settings, which will allow me to really dial in exactly how the timing of that reverb is going to end up working. So all of these controls, again, very quick and easy ways for me to actually edit and dial in my sound. Finally, I can click on the Echoes tab right here. The Echoes tab is going to allow me to dial in my echoes exactly as I would like them, changing anything from the right and left echo, delay, and gains, and of course also being able to change the master sounds for my echo. And all of these different parameters are also available in my soft row. So if I go back to my soft row, I can click on any section and I can take a look at all of the different options which I am able to control here inside of my soft row. So again, the soft row is going to allow me to go directly in and customize my plugin just as I would like it. And of course, I can save those presets inside of my plugin so that I can call them up in my other sessions very, very quickly and make use of all these awesome parameters inside of the Chamber Reverb plugin. So again, in summary, this plugin gives you access to a chamber reverb algorithm, which is really, really very useful for being able to emulate a number of spaces all the way from small chambers going all the way up to large chambers. You've got access to category pull down right here in the top half of the plugin, allowing you to choose those chamber sizes, and then presets, which all will be dialed and allow you to find exactly the sound that you need for your mix. Making use of the EQ can be very, very useful for being able to dial in exactly how you would like for this plugin to affect your mix overall. Of course, in the center of the plugin, you have your real-time display. Very, very useful for being able to mix with your eyes as well as your ears. You have your input and output meters available to you as well, allowing you to keep an eye on your overall signal. And then down here in the fader section of the plugin, of course, I've spoken in depth about all of the different controls we have available to us in the faders, one of the most useful things being the soft row and being able to click on one of these small menus below the labeling of each of these different parameters in the soft row and choose a number of different parameters which we can take control of in our plugin and really dial in and customize our plugin exactly to how we would like it to sound and affect our source audio. So there you go, guys. That's a quick overview of the Lexicon Chamber Reverb plugin. Again, that's all part of the PCM Native Reverb plugin bundle available from lexiconpro.com. A really great way to add some awesome reverb to your mix. Again, you'll want to check out some of our other videos to find out more about all of these other awesome plugins from Lexicon Pro. In the meantime, I hope that this has been useful to you guys and that you start adding some great reverb to your productions right now. Thanks so much for watching, and happy music making to you. Take care.